in for the touchdown. Did he get it? Yes, sir, he did. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You're listening to the One Pridecast. Hello and welcome to the One Pridecast presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host, Tori Petry, joined on the other line by Mike O'Hara. Mike, we're back from the bye week. How was your bye?
It was great. I was, disappointed to say goodbye to my bye week, but, back to work and I'm looking forward to these next 12 games and see how it unfolds for the Detroit Lions and the entire National Football League too. With it's been a different year. It's been a different season. It's been a different just about everything this year, and I want to see how it unfolds.
Absolutely. Different is the best way to describe this year for sure. You talk about there being 12 games to go. It's crazy how many games there still are. That early bye week is just an interesting place to be in, especially in a season where now teams are, with all of the COVID protocols and the delays and everything, bye weeks have become so important for rescheduling. So it's interesting that the Lions bye is already gone, and now that they still have 12 more games to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the COVID-19 virus and all that plays into it. It's that whole thing is just different. And I don't know if we're fully coming to grips with that or not, but it's certainly not like an ankle injury where if a guy sprains his ankle in practice on Wednesday, you go, well, how is he today? How is he Friday? How is he Sunday? That's an entirely different thing with the virus, and you don't spread ankle injuries. You do spread the virus, and you talk about outbreaks and all that. It's an element that affects everybody from the players to the fans to just everybody involved in this entire great game of pro football.
Absolutely. It was wild over the Lions bye week. Obviously we weren't covering a game, so we got to watch a little bit more football. And then over the bye week, we had a Tuesday night football game, which is just, so bizarre. It really is so crazy. But I think that this bye week did come at a time where the Lions need it. You always say that. Oftentimes it's because a team needs to get healthy, and so it gives them some extra time to get healthy. But for me, it seemed like this team just needed a little bit of a reset.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we talked about that when we did a shorter version of this that week, and I think it's accurate. I think like we're working remotely mostly. The players are there. It's sort of like submarine duty to me. There's really no escape from it. They go to work, they practice, they go home. They sort of, I wouldn't say quarantine, but they're very careful about what they do and go back and the same thing over and over and over. And I think they needed a break from that, and kind of just I think get freshened up mentally more as much as physically.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, we talked about this a little bit last week, but let's just recap a little bit. What do you feel like the Lions needed to change over this bye week in order to flip things around?
Well, I wouldn't say change it. I'd say play defense for a change. They really haven't done that. Now they had one good stretch of defensive play, and that was really from start to almost to finish, and that was against the Chicago Bears in the opener. They didn't finish it. They were good until like the last 3 minutes of the third quarter, and that's when the Bears started to put together what proved to be the winning drive, 3 touchdown passes by Mitchell Trubisky, who's been benched in favor of Nick Foles, who's not that great either. But aside from that, I think they just haven't had it defensively. Look, they've given up 127 points in 4 games. That's do the math. It's 31.75, I think it is, points per game. You're not going to win that way. The interesting thing about that, just to flip it over, the Jacksonville Jaguars had an upset win over the Colts in the opener, and since then they've lost 4 straight. Why? Because they've given up 127 points in 4 games. There's a commonality here. If you don't play defense in the National Football League to some degree, and it's different than 10 years ago. It's different than 20 years ago. It's different than the steel curtain of the Pittsburgh Steelers in their first heyday. It's different than the 11 Angry Men and all that other stuff. It's different than the old Silver Rush here in Detroit in the 70s and 80s when they really had 3-4 Pro Bowl, all-pro defensive linemen up front and players behind them. You're just not going to shut people down the way you used to, but you've got to play better defense than your opponent is playing if you're going to win games in the National Football League. And that's what the Detroit Lions have to show, that they've come up with some sort of formula, some sort of whatever to defend better, or they're going to struggle. These last 12 games are just going to be just an awful struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And we already kind of looked back at the last Lions game, so this will be a little bit of a mini episode as well, because we already looked back at the last game the Lions played in the bye week episode. So now let's just look ahead to what the Lions have ahead of them. 2 road games, assuming what happens with the Atlanta Falcons doesn't affect them. Of course, just before you and I got on the phone, we heard that the Atlanta Falcons were shutting down. We'll see what ends up playing out with that, but assuming things stay the same, the Lions have the Jaguars this weekend, the Atlanta Falcons after that, and then they come back home and face the Indianapolis Colts. At least these couple of games on the road should provide the Lions with an opportunity to turn things around, because these aren't teams that are exactly rolling right now.
No, like we mentioned, the Jaguars are 1-4, and they're 1-4 for a reason. I think under Doug Marrone, who I think is a good coach, he had a good run at Buffalo, or a decent run at Buffalo before, and got this team to the playoffs 3 years ago with a 10-6 record, and they're really one defense pass away from beating the New England Patriots and going to the Super Bowl. Now, they were 10-6 in the regular season, but when you really look at them, they've had one winning record in the last 13 years. That's a one. Now, look, I know it's been tough here in Detroit, but it hasn't been that tough. At least not lately, not in the last decade or so. And look, I said there's a reason for that. They haven't been able to keep their good players in. Players have wanted out. They've asked out. They've been traded. They've been refused to play, refused to report, stuff like that. And that's sort of the modern National Football League, the modern National Basketball Association. You can force your way off a roster if you really are determined to do it, and you make enough noise. And look, the players have they have a stake in this too. They have careers too, just like everybody else. And if they want greener pastures, then they'll find a way to do it. And it's really, I think, has impacted the Jaguars in a negative way. But I think they put together some good young promising players. We'll just see if they get time to develop together.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.
All right, so as the Lions head to Jacksonville, what do you feel like they should be able to take advantage of against the Jaguars?
Well, the Jags are, if you look at the ratings that all that come out, they're a lot like the Lions defensively. They just don't rate very high in anything. They've got 5 sacks in 5 games. The Lions have 5 in 4 games. Neither one is really an acceptable level. They haven't been able to get turnovers. That's also something that's plagued the Lions, although they've come out of that, in the last couple of games, with interceptions and then a fumble recovery and an interception against the New Orleans Saints before everything fell apart on them. But, well, I shouldn't say fell apart. The Saints it wasn't falling apart. The Saints just took it and grabbed it and ran with it with 5 straight possessions that ended in touchdowns. But I think, the Lions have to, one thing has really hurt them, and I agree with some of the players have said about it, is that they can't get pressure on the quarterback. Like I said, they got 5 sacks in 5 games. Well, as Trey Flowers said before the bye in his Zoom interview with the media, you can't get pressure on the quarterback unless you stop the run, because you're not going to get into pass rush situations. And so, the Lions have given up 170 plus yards per game on average in 4 games. And they have given up 5.2 yards per carry. We'll just do the math. It takes 10 yards to get a first down. You give up 5.2 yards on first down. You're not in a pass rush situation. You're really in an ideal situation for the opposing offense to pick and choose what they want to do. Drop back, throw, screen, whatever you want to do. They've really got you in a bind, and so they've got to change that around and get into, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, stuff like that. Get a sack. Now it's 2nd and 15, and it really changes the dynamic and what your play callers, in this case Corey Undlin, defensive coordinator what he can call. There's certain things you can't call in 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. So you both sides, run defense and pass defense, kind of go hand in glove. Well, there's a missing glove there.
Yeah, that seems to have been the message this week. We can have a better pass rush if we can stop the run better.
And we can stop the run better if you can stop the pass. It's the way it works.
Right, absolutely. But how? What do they need to do to be able to stop the run? I mean, the one game that they won was the game that they stopped the run well. They stopped Kyler Murray on the ground. Mike, you gave them the formula to win here on the One Pridecast. They followed it, and they were able to stop Kyler Murray on the ground, force him to throw, got those 3 interceptions, and that was the one game where they did that well, and it was the one game that they won. So what do they need to do to be able to stop the run?
Well, more of the same. But look, there's a really a cool story with the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's James Robinson, a kid from Illinois State.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember now we talked at the start of the season. I'm sorry, after the draft, and you know, Bob Quinn said this like immediately after the draft. This will be one of those years where it's going to be hard for undrafted free agents. For teams aren't going to sign a lot of them because they're not going to be these rookie tryout camps and all that. So it's going to be hard for any kid who hasn't been drafted to either get signed and then B, get on a roster, and then C, contribute. Well, how about the ABCs of James Robinson of Illinois State? He was not one of the 19 running backs drafted. I can't believe I took up my time to count all of those. I almost ran out of fingers and toes. I got to 19 and I thought, thank God. I made it. It's a good thing it's not the old days when you do it in Roman numerals. I don't know what I would have done. But anyway, I get into VIII. That would have been a tough one. But Tori, look, this kid's got 333 yards rushing. How improbable is he made it? Not only did he make the roster, he started opening day. Not only did he start opening day in their upset win over the Colts, he carried the ball on the first 3 possessions. The first 3 plays of the game is this kid from Illinois State. I mean, where does that come from? And he's had a pretty good start, 333 yards in 5 games. In 5 games, he's averaging right on to about 1,100 yard season. Who knows? He might be the offensive rookie of the year. I don't know. But he's a real threat for the Detroit Lions, and he's also been a good receiver out of the backfield. So, key on him, as unlikely as it may seem, that's one of the things they have to do.
Yeah, well, it certainly helped his case when Leonard Fournette left town.
Yep.
But he provided him an opportunity, and he took it. And that has been a guy that has been in conversations this week in Detroit when it comes to coaches and people breaking down film. Coach Patricia broke down James Robinson on our coaches show on Lions Game Plan on Fox Sports Detroit, which airs at 5:30 on Thursday nights. He talked about James Robinson and the threat that he brings. TJ Lang on our X Factor show presented by Xfinity, he talked about James Robinson, and that has seemed to be the key. Now, are you feeling sort of like you did against Arizona Cardinals, where if you are able to stop the run, that forcing Gardner Minshew to throw is where you're going to win this game?
Well, I would think so. Now, look, Minshew is the one thing he's improved, and his statistics, if you really look at him. First of all, let's back up a little bit. He took over for Nick Foles last year. And, it was on and off as a starter, but he ended up starting 12 games, and he had a 6-6 one-loss record. All the games that they won last year were with Gardner Minshew the second, by the way, not just to distinguish from that other Gardner Minshew, wherever he is, but and his mustache and all that have become famous down there already in Jacksonville. And, he had a nice year going last year. He completed 60% of his passes. This year, he's even got a higher completion rate, 69%, 69 and change percent is his completion rate. And this is for a kid who was a 6th-round draft pick. Look, I think that they put together some good young talent there. They obviously need more, but, guys like, Juwan Taylor, the offensive tackle from Florida. Isn't that a school that plays in the SEC?
Hey, I've heard of them.
But them, and this year they've added a couple of players. One of them is Laviska Shenault, really very athletic, very versatile wide receiver. I mean, here, look, they've got a rookie, James Robinson, undrafted, leads them in rushing. They've got a rookie drafted in the top 2 rounds who leads them in receptions and really has a chance to be a really good player, big physical guy too. So there's some complementary pieces there that can help Gardner Minshew, but it just hasn't been proven yet in the one-loss record.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Jaguars' defense and what kind of opportunity that might provide this Lions offense this week to get back on track. You know, they haven't played terribly, but we need to see more consistency from them, and this could be an opportunity. The Jaguars defense has some good players. They've got some young guys like Josh Allen, like C.J. Henderson, but, you know, they haven't quite been able, to stop opposing offenses. I believe they're allowing upwards of 400 yards a game.
Yeah, I think right about, give or take a few. And thanks for bringing up Josh Allen. I just kind of glossed over him. He was drafted 7th overall, Tori, last year out of Kentucky, and one pick ahead of where the Detroit Lions took T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end. And that was one of those drafts last year. I think every mock draft in the world, including my own, had Josh Allen going to Jacksonville, and he just fit there because of what they needed and a good player. And look, he had 10.5 sacks as a rookie, 23 quarterback hits. Look out, Matthew Stafford. He's coming. And he's already got two sacks this year, 7 quarterback hits, and he's missed 1 game because of injury. I'm assuming he'll be back on Sunday. But as we all know, we'll find out when we find out. But really a good ball player. And then, like I mentioned, the offensive lineman, right offensive tackle, to help protect the quarterback. He started all 20 games, all 16 last year. All 21 games, all 16 last year, and the first 5 this year. So they've got some good players there that they drafted wisely, but, it's like every other team. They've got to develop, and they've got to develop in a hurry.
Yeah. One thing that came up this week was how Matthew Stafford has only one team that he has not thrown a touchdown pass against, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even though he's 2-0 against them, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in any of those games. Mike, do you think that changes this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, of course I think that. That's my guy. What are you talking about?
I know.
Matter of fact, I was trying to keep that quiet, okay? I don't want any smudges on my guy's record.
Oh, my goodness.
Just kidding. Tori, I don't think Matthew's played his best football yet. I don't think the offense has played his best football. But when you look at his numbers, except for a couple of interceptions, look, a lot of guys would take those numbers and say, hey, I'm having a pretty good year. When do I renegotiate? But that's it hasn't been up to his standard. And, I think we've talked about this before. It just seemed like he just didn't have quite the same energy level the first 4 games as he's had in the past. I have no doubt that if he didn't, for whatever reason, he'll get that back. I mean, he said he's been asked this, and it's a legitimate question. Has his back been bothering him? Because, he missed the last 8 games last year with a back injury. Something that had plagued him the year before too, but he said he's fine, and I haven't noticed like any flexibility issues, and seems to me like he's making all the same great throws that he's always made, just not enough of them or not as many of them, and then a couple of interceptions that really are. Look, I get it. He's got a great arm. He likes to take chances, but sometimes you got to tone it down a little bit. And if they're going to make a run, then they've got to tone that down and then crank up everything else.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens on Sunday when the Lions head to Jacksonville out of their bye week. Let's take it to Mike's Pick of the Week, presented by MGM Grand Detroit. Mike, who's it going to be this weekend in Jacksonville?
Well, Tori, it's this. Look, week 6, game 5. Is it must win? Yeah, it is. This is a team you have to knock off, just like Atlanta coming up the next week. Depending on what happens there. But this is a game you cannot lose. If you go down, 1-4, you're not going to make the playoffs, and you've lost to really, by record, one of the worst 2 or 3 or 4 teams in the league. And you know what? The Jaguars are looking at the Lions and saying, "Hey, this is the game we ought to win." And so this is when you give teams opportunity and a chance, it really changes the dynamic of how they look at it and sometimes how they perform. Having said all that, the Detroit Lions have better players, better quarterback, better a lot of things. If they don't beat themselves, they've sort of done that a little bit in the first part of the season. I think this is a game the Lions can win, can really put up some numbers. So I like the Lions 37-20.
Oh.
37.
Wow. So the offense is going to have a big day. Matthew Stafford is going to have more than one of those touchdowns.
More than one, unless there's 5 or 6 field goals in it I haven't accounted for. No, I think they're going to have a big game against the Jaguars. It fits. If they want to accomplish anything, if they want to be the team they think they want to be, then they've got to start it on Sunday. And look, whoever thought Jacksonville would be the stepping stone to greatness, well, it isn't the stepping stone to greatness. It's just finding a game that you can win, and I say the Detroit Lions will do it this week.
Okay, I like it, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us on the One Pridecast presented by MGM Grand Detroit. I appreciate it as always, and I will see you Sunday at Ford Field.
All right, sounds great. Too bad we're not going to Jacksonville, but at least we're not going to London.
Fair. Although I would love to be going back to my home state this weekend. That would be a whole lot of fun. But, hey, we'll cover it from Ford Field and we'll make it fun.
All right, sounds great. It always is.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.